Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site to let you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like that, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me as always, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's going on is today we are talking about Deadpool 2 in honor of course, Deadpool and Wolverine opening this weekend. Peek behind the curtain, we're recording this Wednesday night as opposed to our normal Thursday night recording so that we can go see Deadpool and Wolverine Thursday night before the internet spoils everything for us. That's what we're going to be talking about today. If you want more Deadpool thoughts from us, you can go all the way back to episode 135 of that D Plus show, where I believe it was Cameron, myself, and Logan, I think, joined us for that one, to talk about the first Deadpool back when it joined Disney Plus and became like the first rated R thing on Disney Plus. And it was one of those like, well, this is a day we never thought would come kind of things. So our history lesson here for Deadpool 2, originally released May 18th, 2018. Other releases of the time, on March 29th, 2018, you had Ready Player One. April 6th was A Quiet Place. Rampage was April 13th. Super Troopers 2 was April 20th. Haha, 420. Avengers Infinity War was April 27th. And basically had the box office to itself for a few weeks. Then Deadpool 2 came along May 18th, followed by Solo, A Star Wars Story, May 25th. The odd trio of Ocean's 8, Won't You Be My Neighbor, and Hereditary on June 8th. Incredibles 2, June 15th, which until like now-ish was the number one highest grossing animated movie of all time, but if it hasn't already surpassed it, Inside Out 2 is just about to. So Inside Out 2 gonna be the highest grossing animated film of all time. I think it's already become number one worldwide.
Yes.
Or it was like right behind Frozen 2 worldwide, and it's right behind The Incredibles 2 domestically, but I think it's basically going to pass both of those sometime this week if it hasn't already. We had Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom on June 22nd, and then rounding out the MCU summer that year, Ant-Man and the Wasp alongside Sorry to Bother You on July 6th. Box office breakdown here. For the domestic gross in 2018, this movie had $318.4 million, which is down a little bit from the original Deadpool that was $363 million. So where do you think that falls on the domestic charts there, Cameron?
Domestically, I think it probably lands it at, looking at the kind of like murderer's row of some like really big movies that year, particularly Infinity War. We're probably looking at that being number 8.
Number 8, Mission Impossible Fallout, $220 million.
So higher.
Deadpool 2 did better than number 8, yeah.
Okay, then I'll probably go up to 6.
It is number 6, yes. Deadpool 2, number 6, $318 million. Our top 10, actually, I'll drop out a little outside the top 10. Number 15, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Number 14, Ralph Breaks the Internet. Number 13, the first Venom movie, domestically.
That's fucked
I believe
up.
the story is going to change significantly when we look at worldwide.
I'm just gonna say that's messed up, man. That Spider-Verse did worse than Venom.
Yeah, I mean the first Spider-Verse especially did far better on like streaming platforms and stuff. So, number 12 was Solo, A Star Wars Story. Number 11, A Star Is Born. Number 10, Bohemian Rhapsody. Number 9, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Number 8, Mission Impossible Fallout. Number 7, The Grinch, which I believe is the Benedict Cumberbatch animated version. Number 6, Deadpool 2. Number 5, Aquaman. Number 4, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Number 3, Incredibles 2. Number 2, Avengers Infinity War. And coming in at number 1 by about $22 million domestically, Black Panther. Black Panther domestically did $700 million. Avengers Infinity War did $678 million.
That makes sense.
So yes, number 6 domestically there. So where do you think it falls when we get to worldwide? And it's 734.5 million gross, which was down again a little bit from the original Deadpool that had brought in 782.6 million.
Let's go back to my original prediction, number 9. I think it drops like 3 places, maybe.
Your original prediction was number 8, but you
Oh.
are spot on with number 9
Oh,
here.
shoot.
Yes, Deadpool 2 was number 9 internationally or slash worldwide. A little bit of a change up there. Let's see. Number 10 worldwide, which wasn't even in the top 10 domestically, Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. It brought
Gross.
in $655 million. Deadpool 2 at number 9. Mission Impossible Fallout, number 8 worldwide. Venom, number 7, with 856 million worldwide. Number 6 was Bohemian Rhapsody, climbing up the charts. Aquaman stays at number 5, Incredibles 2 at number 4, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom at number 3, Black Panther switches down to number 2 worldwide with 1.3 billion, and Avengers Infinity War just cleaned up internationally and hits number 1 with $2.04 billion. It was a top 5 in the $1 billion club that year, starting with Aquaman. So Aquaman, Incredibles 2, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Black Panther, and Avengers Infinity War were our $1 billion earners. With Bohemian Rhapsody coming close, 903 million.
Yep.
Everybody really wanted that Queen songs.
Yep. I will say, like, that movie, to this day, I think has the worst, like, editing that I've ever seen in a film.
I mean, like, there was that
And it
clip
won
that
Best Editing.
Yeah, there was that clip that made the rounds. It won most editing. The clip that made the rounds that I remember was like them at a cafe table or something like that. It was like 60 edits in a 3-minute scene or something like that.
It was ridiculous. It was insane. There's no cohesion of scene. Like, the thing is, it's like, it's not badly acted at all. Like, it's pretty solid film. As far as like its acting goes.
The reason it won editing is because you can like hold up the video, like the film side by side with like the Wembley stuff from Live Aid, and like it matches up pretty cleanly. Like that's I think what it is, not all of these other terrible sequences.
Yeah, it's it's crazy because like one of my favorite scenes of that is when Freddie is talking to Mary, who, for people who don't know, Freddie was in and out of this relationship with this woman for years before she finally helped him kind of come out of the closet. Which, coming from like the like very traditional Zanzibar like background that he came from, was a very difficult thing for him. And her helping him do that was a big momentum, and it's one of the reasons why like he considered her children to be like his children, basically. Like he like they remained extremely close throughout their entire lives, to the point where like her eldest son is like quote unquote considered the heir of his estate for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, I remember it was also one of those movies where it was like, well, they had to get sign off from like the surviving band members and stuff, so they couldn't make them look bad, and basically they get all this extra like screen time and all this like, oh, they're the real brains of the operation kind of thing. And it's like, all right. One of them movies.
It's I think my favorite part about it was Sacha Baron Cohen, who was originally cast as Freddy. When they asked why he left the project, they're like, what creative differences? He goes, when they come back and say, well, halfway through the film, like, Freddy should die, and just because it's a story about actually how Queen went on after Freddie Mercury died. And it's like, don't know about that one, man. Like,
I mean, also they don't end up doing that. So.
Nope, they didn't do that anyway.
Anyway.
But yeah, so like that movie was like had troubled production for years.
Sure.
So
anyway, back to Deadpool 2. We have a runtime of 1 hour and 59 minutes. In the Fox X-Men timeline of things, we had the first Deadpool back in 2016, February 2016. Nice little Valentine's Day movie there. X-Men Apocalypse was May 27th, 2016. Logan, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, March 3rd, 2017. Followed by Deadpool 2 here, May 18th, 2018. Then we would get Dark Phoenix a year later, June 7th, 2019. And the New Mutants would round out the X-Men verse. Until, if you want to count Deadpool and Wolverine coming up, But yes, New Mutants was the last one made prior to the Fox merger, August 28th, 2020. And it was one that, yeah, basically got sent out to die after many, many delays, just got sent out to die in the pandemic. Our roll call here, we have a new director here, David Leitch, who was previously the uncredited co-director of the first John Wick film, hence the like opening credit thing of directed by one of the guys who killed the dog in John Wick. He also would go on to direct Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2 here, obviously, Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw, Bullet Train, and this year's The Fall Guy. And also of note, he is a long-running stunt double for Brad Pitt, which is why we get a little Brad Pitt cameo in the film. Our writers here, returning from the first film, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. They are joined this time around by Ryan Reynolds as a credited writer on the film. Rhett Reese having written on The Joe Schmo Show, Zombieland, G.I. Joe Retaliation, the first Deadpool, Zombieland Double Tap, Twisted Metal, and he will be returning for Deadpool and Wolverine, as will Paul Wernick. And yeah, they were basically a writing duo, so they all wrote on the same things. Ryan Reynolds, this was his first writing credit, I believe, but he has also since gone on to be the writer of his little documentary film, Welcome to Wrexham, as well as he has a writing credit on Deadpool and Wolverine as well. Our cast of characters here, of course, Ryan Reynolds as Wade slash Deadpool slash also the voice of Juggernaut, having been in stuff like Van Wilder, Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, Green Lantern, Deadpool, Free Guy, Red Notice, and The Atom Project. Josh Brolin makes his entry into the series here as Cable, having been in Goonies, No Country for Old Men, and then, of course, he was Thanos in the MCU since 2014. And he's more recently been in the Dune series. Morena Baccarin as Vanessa returning, having been in Firefly and Serenity, as well as V, Homeland, Gotham, and the first Deadpool. Julian Dennison making his debut here as Fire Fist, having been in Hunt for the Wilder People, Deadpool 2, and then he would go on and be in Godzilla vs. Kong. Zazie Beetz joins the crew as Domino here, having been in Atlanta, and then after this she would go on to be in Joker, and she can be heard in Invincible in recent years. T.J. Miller is Weasel, having been in Cloverfield, How to Train Your Dragon, Silicon Valley, Big Hero 6, and Ready Player One, as well as, of course, the first Deadpool. Leslie Uggams as Blind Owl returning, having been in Black Girl and Roots. She's also more recently been in Empire, and most recently she was in the Fallout series. Karan Sony as Dopinder, having been in Safety Not Guaranteed, Betas, Ghostbusters 2016, Deadpool 2, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, and he was the voice of Indian Pavitar Puth, I forget what his name is, but Indian Peter Parker, Indian Spider-Man in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Brianna Hildebrand returns as Negasonic Teenage Warhead, having been in The Exorcist, Deadpool 2, and Lucifer. Shioli Kutsuna makes her debut here as Yukio. Hi, Yukio. Hi, Wade. She's been in Xenoblade Chronicles, as well as Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15, the film that came out alongside that. And then most recently, she was in a series called Invasion for a few seasons. Eddie Marsan as the Headmaster, been in Snow White and the Huntsman, Atomic Blonde, Hobbs and Shaw, Ray Donovan, and The Gentleman. And Stefan Kapicic, returning as Colossus, having been in the first Deadpool, as well as Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Better Call Saul. And then little cameos we got our fun little X-Force crew. Terry Crews as Bedlam, probably best known recently from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Bill Skarsgård as Zeitgeist, would also go on to be Pennywise in It. Louis Tan as Shatterstar, was in the Mortal Kombat 2021 film, as kind of the main guy Cole in that. Brad Pitt cameo as the Vanisher, of course from Fight Club, among a billion other things. And Rob Delaney as Peter from a series called Catastrophe and many other things, including stand-up comedy stuff and whatnot. So I looked all out of bubblegum, our usual go-to for kill counts in movies. Did not have an entry for Deadpool 2. So I then went to a backup source, which is basically like fandom has a wiki of like, big movie deaths kind of stuff. So we have this one to refer to. So how many deaths? I've listed them here in order of Deadpool, Cable, Domino, and Juggernaut have the top four. What do you? How many deaths do you think Deadpool racks up in this one, Cam?
Oh. 65?
Lower.
Okay. 48.
Higher.
53.
Lower.
50.
Lower.
49.
Correct.
There we go.
Yeah, 49. We have Cable below that, so lower than 49. Where do you think he falls?
18?
Higher.
Okay. 25.
Higher.
33.
Higher.
40.
Higher.
45.
Lower.
43.
43 indeed, yes.
There you go.
He racks up a lot of death in the jail, alongside the big fight at the end at the Essex Sanctuary or whatever it is, this Essex school. Then we have Domino coming in here, so lower than 43. Where do you think she falls?
Are they counting the cars?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Oof. 26.
A little higher.
33.
Lower.
30.
Lower.
29.
29 indeed.
There
yes.
we go.
And then lastly, Juggernaut. How many kills do you think Juggernaut racks up?
0.
No. He's got a few on here.
3.
Higher.
8.
Higher.
12.
Higher.
15.
15. Yep. I don't know where they are. I haven't like looked to see. Oh, hey, there we go. 15 unnamed mutant prisoners killed after Kane Marco / Juggernaut causes the prison transport truck
that
to
makes
crash.
sense. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
what they're giving him. All right. Then we have a few more little trivia bits here in the form of cameos. We have the little redneck cameos there from Alan Tudyk and Matt Damon. Notably, the little spiel they go on here about like wet wipes for babies instead of toilet paper. As the story goes, it was a long-running story that one of the writers, Rhett Reese, would kind of share and whatnot. He told it at a dinner party, or he told it to Ryan Reynolds at one point, and Ryan Reynolds relayed that at a dinner party to Matt Damon, where he pitched the toilet paper manifesto, as it's called, and asked Damon if he wanted to play the part. Damon thought it was hilarious and agreed to do the cameo. Then we have Ryan Reynolds wrote Brad Pitt a letter pitching the idea of a cameo to him. I just wrote him a letter and explained what we were doing. And sort of the premise behind it was what's the most wasteful way to use the biggest movie star in the world? And it was through a character that is largely invisible and worthless throughout the movie. He continued, saying, Pitt seemed to like the idea, and I guess Brad found it funny. We all found it funny, so he said yes. And the next thing you know, he came and shot for about 7 minutes. According to screenwriter Paul Wernick, Pitt jumped at the chance to appear in Deadpool 2, immediately said yes. Wernick told Heat Vision, per The Hollywood Reporter, it was a pinch me moment. Reynolds only had good things to say about Pitt. He's such a gentleman and such a funny, charming human being, and parenthetical, the biggest movie star on Earth. And it was all pretty exciting for all of us. The cameo we get of the other X-Men cast, closing the door, was shot on the set of X-Men Dark Phoenix that would come out a year later. And then they sent it over to the Deadpool 2 crew. Not in the version that's on Disney Plus or the version that we watched, but there was an edited down PG-13 version of this film that came out around the holidays in 2018 called Once Upon a Deadpool, with added scenes between Deadpool and a kidnapped Fred Savage, with a very like Princess Bride-esque framing of Deadpool reading the story to Fred Savage, a la Princess Bride stuff. And they did you ever watch that one?
No,
that version
I have
of it?
found out though that you can watch all of those clips on YouTube though.
Yeah, I know. Kind of funny. Talked about that in their recent in review watch. I did see it in theaters. It was fun. Like it's very much like, oh yeah, they rip out a lot of the extra death stuff, and they censor a lot of the other stuff to bring the PG rating down, or PG-13 rating. But all the interstitials and stuff that they have with Fred Savage are a lot of fun. I think the big one that kind of made waves and kind of went viral, or has gone viral a couple times over, was Fred Savage shitting on Nickelback, and Deadpool slash Ryan Reynolds, of course, very much coming in defense of Nickelback and being like, they're one of the highest selling artists of the last 20 years. Everybody loves to hate on Nickelback, but they are great. And then and Fred Savage is like, yeah, I like them too. And then I think they have like a little moment of, this is how you remind me, or something like that. But they basically do a little nod. So yeah, shout outs to that little bit. And then back to the idea that Ryan Reynolds was a co-writer on the film. He wrote the entire baby legs scene himself, which made up about 11 pages of the finished screenplay. It was all loved so much that virtually none of it, nothing from the first draft was really changed. Scary, quote, "It's scary to have an 11-page talking scene in an action movie, but it turned out great," Reynolds said. "Everything rode on the legs, though. If the legs didn't look right, we were going to be screwed." In the same scene, Wade, played by Reynolds, criticizes the limitations to Cable's time traveling as, quote, lazy writing, meaning that Reynolds is effectively lambasting his own writing in that scene.
That's great.
So yeah, that's the trivia I pulled in there. I'm sure, as is always the case, there are a bajillion Easter eggs out there. The movie starts with a Easter egg nod to Logan, and a very tongue-in-cheek, bit of like, fuck Wolverine for going out there and stealing my R rating and then also killing himself. But yeah. What did you think here of Deadpool 2 rewatching it, Cam? Have you rewatched it recently, or is this like like the first time since maybe the original watch kind of thing?
I've rewatched this like maybe once or twice. It is not any time in the last 5 years though. I think the last time was pre-pandemic for sure. Deadpool 1 and 2 were like two of my favorite movies of all time back in my like edgier 20s. But yeah, overall, like it is that was the last time I saw it. So I would say it for the most part holds up. There's a few CGI things that I think don't, but overall my general that's how I feel it holds up. Like this is not that old of a movie. It's 6 years old. Came out in 2018, right?
Yeah.
So it came out 6 years ago. Still very modern, has a lot of it has a couple of references that like either you need to be like older to get, or you need to like have been there in 2018. Particularly like the dubstep stuff.
No, I mean, like the dubstep stuff, like this always comes up with like the kind of funny review stuff. The dubstep stuff was old even in 2018.
Yes, it was.
And movie
that was the point.
Even calls it out at the end, where like you're probably wondering like, what's the takeaway from this movie besides I need to look up like what the hell is dubstep or something like that.
Yeah.
Like the movie even calls itself out on
100%.
Dubstep being a dated reference in the movie.
My thing about that is not dated. It's like that is like a 2018 was a like it was lampooning a couple of things. One, people have mostly gotten over dubstep. Two, people got over dubstep because dubstep went into everything for such a like short period of time that it like kind of killed itself off, which is part of the humor and joke of it. But if you're not there, like if you had been living in the zeitgeist and media of like, that's one of the things I'm like, I don't see that as like a dated joke. I see that as like a time capsule joke that may not land if you did not live through that. The same thing with like shout out, like one of my favorite lines is he goes, is at the beginning of the movie, he goes, "Hit it, Dolly." And because then Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 pops up, like, and is like played throughout that entire sequence. And if you do not like Dolly Parton, beloved American icon, particularly like in the rural South, like very beloved. We only have like the vast availability of the Moderna vaccine during the pandemic because she was one of the big backers of the Moderna vaccine. So shout out to her. She also like legendary activist when it comes to like reading. In that a lot of kids, the only reason they had resources to learn how to read growing up is because they got free books from Dolly Parton's foundation, who like catered specifically to rural Appalachia, and then had that spread out throughout the rest of the South.
So I'm trying to figure out where you're going with like
Oh.
Dolly Parton being like a time sensitive.
Oh no, sorry.
Reference here.
The time sensitive was like dubstep. This is an example of like very niche American culture. Is like my other thing about it. And like I'm not saying these are bad things. Okay. I like these about the movie. I'm sorry if I came off and be like these are bad. No, this is good. No. I like that.
I just thought like you went on like a minute long tangent about how great Dolly Parton is. I'm like fine, but like in the context that you were saying of like yeah, dubstep is one of these things that feels like a time capsule. And then you started to say like another example, but you went into Dolly Parton.
Oh, sorry.
So I don't know where you were going with that.
I shouldn't have said another example. I meant like another example of like something that is like that you like your mileage could vary based off of like your like I don't know. Dolly Parton's big also because I'm queer, and like we famously love Dolly Parton, and Dolly Parton very famously loves us.
Sure.
So, but also growing up in like my family, we listen to Dolly Parton.
I feel like you just wanted to take a couple minutes to celebrate Dolly Parton on this episode, which okay.
What? No. What? No, I will say these are in particular. These are sequences that like are super Deadpool in the way that it's like just a like great reference, but it is like a very American reference. So if you're asking like an international audience to know who Dolly Parton is, less so instead of it's like just a 9 to 5 song comes up.
I vehemently disagree. I think Dolly Parton is a worldwide, people around the world know Dolly Parton, especially because of how long she's been around in the game.
Well, if that's the case, I'm impressed even more than I was before by her.
Okay. I think you thought too little of Dolly Parton is what
that's what it's coming off as. I thought too little of her.
I mean, like it's also like famously known that she was the one who wrote "I Will Always Love You," aka Whitney Houston's biggest hit. Dolly's been great. There are a couple other like dated-ish references that I think about, but like they're also like one of them in particular was. It's very much like a blink and you'll miss it. When they're at the school originally and like Fire Fist is like threatening to pop off, the scroll on the news report has a reference to like Christopher Plummer refuses to be in Deadpool 2 or like turns down Deadpool 2 or something. And that is very specifically a reference to the fact that Christopher Plummer had just come in and replaced Kevin Spacey in a movie, because Kevin Spacey had been outed as a piece of shit. So it was very much like a pointed reference at that like quick turnaround thing that had happened. But yeah, if you don't recall that or don't understand why that was a reference, you're just going to see that and be like, what the hell are they talking about?
That's one of those time capsule things like that is very big in the moment that you'd catch and be like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy they did that. But today means like very little.
Yeah. And then also the punch at Jared Kushner, which like Jared Kushner was a big name on the world stage because of being the president's son-in-law and appointed to absurdly high positions of power that he should not have been in. But it's also
he was in charge of the Middle East policy for 4 years.
Yeah, clearly that worked out great. I have not thought about Jared Kushner in a few years since they've really like left the limelight following January 6th, really. But yeah, so like still having that as a reference pop back up was like, oh yeah, that's right. They took that little pointed jab. But overall, like I think a lot of the stuff in here, it is Deadpool, so it's like jokes a mile a minute. Not all of them are going to land. Obviously, there's also a whole lot of like TJ. This is like the last few things that TJ Miller did were like this and Ready Player One before he kind of was like persona non grata because of shitty things that he started doing and saying.
Oh, on top of the fact that he called in a bomb threat on an old lady?
That is what I'm referring to in terms
okay.
of like among the shitty things he was doing and saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out he was just like an enormous piece of shit.
Yeah. But yeah, still, I think there's like a lot of fun just in and around the film, as is always the case with these. And it's one of those things I always, when I think back on Deadpool, like I think we talked about this like when we did the first Deadpool film, like so many of the things I think about when I think of Deadpool ended up being in Deadpool 2, and I hadn't like remembered that it was like so much weighted, like the fact that Domino, is in there, and like the Juggernaut stuff. Like I had thought that was like Deadpool 1 stuff, and like Domino especially, like I thought she just comes back in Deadpool 2. It's like, oh no, she was not in the first one. There's also a the extra X-rated version of this movie out there too that I remember having some extra stuff in there. In particular, I think involving like animated unicorns or something like that. I don't remember enough about that to be able to like really speak to it, but
I don't recall that at all.
I mean, there is like another version, like a harder version of this that also includes like a post-credit scene among the other post-credit scene, but there is one where like he goes back to kill baby Hitler kind of thing.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, those are like the yes.
Yeah.
I do recall that. I think I own, if I still own Deadpool 2 on DVD or on Blu-ray, I believe that's
it'd probably be in there. But yeah, I think this was very much a like fun to get the feel back for this one. I think in service of what the movie's trying to do here, I miss one of the great things of the first Deadpool movie is just how like the great chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Morena Baccarin as Vanessa. Like I love their relationship. It's one of the best relationships in any of the Marvel movies, MCU or otherwise. And so for her to get kind of fridged for the bulk of this film, even though they do go back and undo it, and they also give her screen time to make her death impactful and recurringly impactful to Wade. And it's not like Wade is becoming a better person, I guess, like because of it. It's, if anything, it's like Wade wants to die, and that's mostly when we see her when he's not becoming a better person from her death. But yeah, I love the little bits we get of the two of them together. So it's a bummer that like their relationship kind of gets put by the wayside to bring in all of these other voices and all these other like the fact that this was very much like billed as in the same way. And this is one of the things I'm like mildly not dreading, but it's one of those things I'm kind of like prepared for with Deadpool and Wolverine is I imagine the Deadpool crew is largely taking a back seat to bring in Hugh Jackman and make it a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. I feel like we had the same kind of thing here a little bit with the Deadpool and Cable, but at least coming back to it, I appreciate that like Cable is he comes in pretty late. Like you have pretty much the first act before he even really shows up. And then he's a little bit more of an antagonist for a while. And then they finally team up in the third act. But even there, like there's still plenty of time focused on this found family that Deadpool is creating or attempting to create. And his journey through the film, I think, ends up having like weirdly more heart than you would expect from this guy, which I think is a benefit and a testament to Ryan Reynolds, of course. And I think it's also one of those things. I always talk about it in terms of like the disarming power of humor and laughter. Like, this film gets you laughing so much that when it does like punch you in the gut for like emotional beats, they hit a little bit more. Yeah. Always love when they do that. So
I will say this is kind of one of the things I will always love and appreciate about the writers and about the people and Reynolds and people behind the project is they really grasp and understand who Deadpool actually is. Deadpool is, by the modern Marvel standard,
oh god, that's right. You have like this absurd deep love / affinity for Deadpool.
Yes,
that I always forget about. Yeah,
Yep. Deadpool is at his core, like, actually, like, a very broken, tragic character, which is what we get to see in these films, which is why he, like, the depth of and layers of his humor are from the fact that he is so broken and twisted. From, like, one of my favorite scenes in the first movie is him and Vanessa bonding over the, like, deep, deep levels of trauma that they have lived through, and finding somebody who matches their kind of freak. Like, the fact that, like, yeah, we are broken people, but let's have fun, and then fall deeply in love and realize that broken people can help each other heal and become better. And of course, he gets the cancer and everything. And this one, he has accepted Vanessa into his life. She understands who he is, and they have resumed their relationship to a point where they are now looking at starting a family. And that getting taken away puts them on this entire path. The humor, the craziness, the kookiness, those are the flavors of Deadpool, but its core concept is that a broken person is still able to be a hero. And that is the crux of all the best Deadpool stories. And all the best Deadpool writers over the years have been able to establish that, and they do that in a really awesome way. You know, also shout out to, like, this, like, Easter egg about where he mentioned somebody who'd come up with luck as a dumb superpower is probably, like,
Probably some guy who can't draw legs.
Draw
feet, yeah.
Which is a shout out to, like, that is an absolute slam against Rob Liefeld,
Yeah.
who is the creator of Deadpool.
Yeah.
Deadpool literally is a pun off of where do you do the Deathstroke, the Deadpool, like, literally meant to be, like, just a rip off of Deathstroke from DC, and came back in a one shot like, series of comics where he like, is part of, like, a, like, heist scenario, or, like, a race to, like, a treasure hunt thing. And then that leads into him getting his own solo series, limited run, and then, like, slowly building momentum and a fan base to being who he is today, which is a beloved Marvel character in the comic books and video game universe. Even showing up some animated series stuff. This doesn't happen without the fact that at his core, in all of his best stories, it is about a broken person rising above their personal beef with themselves to be a hero. Including the time he Rochambeau's Captain America square in the nuts. Shout out. That's a great panel. Just an awesome, awesome, awesome storytelling device that, unfortunately, people miss and don't get, and just think, oh, I'll just write a kind of kooky weirdo. And we get a very modern interpretation of Deadpool, unfortunately, in most writers' hands. Yeah, I would say, like, most Deadpool stories are better than worse. One of my favorite ones is a, like, part of the Deadpool series where he, post-Skrull invasion, he steals Norman Osborn's fortune, and is being hunted by what's his name? Bullseye. He's being hunted as Bullseye, but Bullseye at this time is masquerading, or rather the current Hawkeye for the Avengers, for Norman Osborn's Avengers. And so it's a brilliant, like, cat and mouse game that goes into, like, absurd territories of Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner-esque stuff, and it's brilliant. So, like, there is still some more modern stuff that is good. Granted, I'm saying modern, this was, like, 2010. But, yeah, it is, for the most part, like, I love Deadpool, but he's at his best when you get writing like this. And it's something that the writers, and Ryan Reynolds in particular, have been championing, being like, this is somebody who people will connect with. Even though he is a, like, murderous psychopath. There is a heart to this person, and it really shines in those moments. The reason that 11-minute dialogue scene works is
11 pages.
11 pages. Sorry. Those 11 pages work is because it's coming from a place of authentically understanding who Deadpool is. Every level of it. What you get in that scene is every level of Deadpool you can imagine. The Domino freaking out about his face, It's his friends being like, "Oh, why are you so freaking gross, man?" And then it's a
Why are you shirt cocking it?
yeah, you're sure cocking it full Winnie the Pooh like ass out, like incredible.
The basic instinct, was
Yeah.
that really necessary?
Yeah. All of that, all of those layers and levels about it, but at his core, the entire time he's saying like, "No, we still got to go after this kid. We still like you have to give me a chance to save this kid," and it's undercut the entire time by the fact that he is walking on these toddler legs, and you have Weasel going like, "Oh my, he's doing it. He's walking." Like, oh my gosh, it's these layers of like really like kind of gross fucked up humor that are sprinkled over this like deep scene about like Cable, he's still a kid, you got to give me a chance to reach him. The person who's the least qualified person to reach a kid like this is the one that does so.
Sure.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah. Any favorite moments or favorite like sequences of the film you want to shout out?
The X-Force jump for sure.
Yeah, even now watching that, it was just such a masterful bait and switch from the marketing.
Absolutely.
Like them like hyping up in the trailers and stuff. It's X-Force. You got Terry Crews coming in being big bad guy kind of thing, and like just and with the like even in the trailers this fun little button of, and then there's this normal guy who has no powers and he's just here for the fun of it.
Sugar Bear.
And then yeah, the masterful execution subversion of like and planting of the like high wind advisory stuff that leads to them just all eating it. But like I even remember in the lead up to like between the trailers and when the movie came out, there being like variety reports of like an X-Force movie is in the works,
Yes.
kind of stuff.
The best leaks. The
And
best,
it was
yeah.
like clearly not, or you did not read the script or something. But yeah, like I just loved how well done that was in terms of like, oh, like this is an interesting like evolution of this Deadpool thing. Let's take all these like D level characters and like turn them into an Avengers kind of thing. And oh, here's what happens when you try and do that. They die.
Yep.
Terribly.
So good. It's unbelievably great. In the thing about this is like Deadpool's all about execution. Like, because that's part of the problem. It's like, yeah, you can have a kooky zany character, but what's your execution look like? And they nail it. They've nailed it in Deadpool 1. They nail it here, and this is why I have massive hopes and aspirations for Deadpool 3. Is because at the core, Deadpool films are a circus. It is a circus of carnage and like humor and like dark fucked up stuff. And if you can execute on it, it's an incredible, enjoyable time. But missteps could make this film just go off the rails and just be garbage. Not really garbage, but it could go off the rails and not be as good as it is.
Yeah. Get lambasted like we get the line near the beginning of the movie when Deadpool's coming up with excuses for Vanessa. Oh, we realized his mom's name is Martha too.
Yes,
and
that's
we stopped
so
fighting.
good. Yeah. That was great. Oh my gosh. Yes. Like that. I know I'm a weird, like, despite my obsession with comic books, I didn't realize that both their names were Martha.
Because they haven't always been. Like,
Yeah.
they renamed Martha Wayne in like one of the newer runs or something like that. Like it's been Martha Kent for quite a long time.
Oh, I know it's always
yeah.
been pretty much Martha. Well, it's Ma Kent and then became Martha Kent.
Yeah, but yeah, that was one of the, because it's I was in the same boat. Like when the movie hits, it's like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Sure, but also this is executed in the dumbest way possible.
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes.
So like I'm not thinking about like, oh, that is interesting that both of their names are Martha, especially because Martha has just always been a non-character. Martha Wayne has always been such a non-character. She's just the pearls and the death. So it's one of those like, yeah, who cares about Martha Wayne's name? Sure. But anyway, yeah. So like moments like that, I love that this movie, especially like this movie, can take the piss out of the Marvel movies calling Josh Brolin Thanos.
Great.
But it could also take the piss out of the DCEU of like, you're so dark. Are you sure you're not from the DC universe?
Yeah, if that's not executed well, that's just a dumb joke.
Yeah. It's this movie could have so easily been the bad, like, not another teen movie things. And admittedly, not another teen movie is like the best of those. Like, and actually probably a pretty good movie. But like it could have been
It's a solid film, but it requires so much knowledge of like '90s teen comedies.
Yeah. It was doing the fun parody of those tropes and stuff before it became like Meet the Spartans, I guess, is probably like one of the ones that's like just absolutely shit. And they were just taking whatever the trailer moments from every other movie had been and throwing them into a movie and whatnot.
What's the superhero one?
Probably just or not another superhero movie or the superhero movie, some stupid thing like that. I don't know. But
that
anyway.
that one was horrible. That one was so bad.
Yeah. This could have easily turned into that in lesser hands. But yeah, I think they do keep the focus on Deadpool as a character, Deadpool's relationships and like his wants and desires instead of like, yes, he can be a quip machine. And that's one of the reasons that Ryan Reynolds is just one of the most pitch perfect castings in terms of superhero stuff. But at the same time, like he keeps things grounded as they can be in that kind of sense. And you do feel that like, okay, yeah, he's a shitty guy to Russell early on because he doesn't like, he's still mourning. He has no interest in trying to like take this kid under his wing. He's not looking for a Robin to his Batman kind of situation.
But also because he's dying again from cancer. Like this is a very similar thing. It's like, you can't like rely on me, kid, because I'm dying. Like I'm not gonna like be here long enough. I have like the most aggressive of cancers all over my body because now I don't have my mutant factor auto healing them. Now I'm just riddled with cancer. Like you can't rely on me in a fight. Like, what are you doing? Like, it makes sense why you're saying you can't trust me.
Yeah, I think if it was that driving it, he would be able to communicate better. Don't rely on me. I can't help you. I think it is more so that
mentally it's the aspect of Vanessa and everything.
Is still hung up on and mourning Vanessa and just like is accepting his death so he doesn't give a fuck about this kid.
100% I agree. I just think it's also on top of that. It's just like, even if he was still going, like, it's everything. It's everything. Like, kid, don't trust me. It's everything.
Yeah. Speaking of that sequence, one of the things I enjoy in this as much as I don't like it, is like the violence in this and the way the violence is depicted. Like I love the sequence in the prison there of Wade like basically being bent all sorts of wrong ways in the bit that does like knock off the suppression device from his neck, and just the like grotesqueness of that. But then in like almost the very next scene, like he takes full advantage of Cable breaking his arm and like turns his arm into like a garrote wire kind of thing in a very unnaturally twisted way to use his deformity against Cable. And I think the film has a lot of fun with creative depictions of that violence. It's not just it's not. I'm going to use it as the example because it's what I think of in terms of like excessive gore. It's not just Tarantino throwing excessive gore to make the points that he wants to make about stuff. It is like creative and like clever, and how can we turn this into interesting choreography that you haven't seen in a million other superhero movies.
Exactly. And this is one of the best things about Deadpool comic books is they do the same thing. Like quite notably, Cable and Deadpool is a limited it ran for I think 3 or 4 years, but it was like its own comic book series. It was like Odd Couple comic book series where basically
it was notoriously after the end of the first Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds coming out here and calling his shot of like even before we know if Deadpool 1 is going to be a hit and spawn a sequel, him coming out here doing the Ferris Bueller ending and being like, go, leave, but don't worry, we'll have Cable in the second one.
Yeah.
And then coming back with Cable in the second one.
Yep. It's just pitch perfect the way that they deliver it because Josh Brolin is the perfect Cable. And what I think they absolutely nail with it is Cable is a super soldier. He's a super soldier, cyber soldier from the future. Love the way they integrated his technovirus of showing like it's not like a cool metal arm upgrade. It is like a virus that has eaten into his body pretty much, and it's a great symbolism of that. Not symbolism, sorry. It's a great example of showing like it's a technovirus, not a like implant. And then on top of that is part of it is like Cable is very adept at killing people, but how does somebody like Cable deal with somebody who can't die? And that is a great kind of like example of and look at their kind of dynamic of you have somebody from the future who knows things are predated and predetermined, and then you have one guy who is kind of just in flux and kind of a chaotic element of things. It's just really awesome. It's just awesome. Their dynamic is brilliant. It's pitch perfect from the comics to here. Pelvis to pelvis, tip to tip. Is that a knife? Yeah, it's a knife in your dick. Yeah. Perfect ways of handling that. The fact that he goes, did we just become best friends? Only besties kill people in sync.
Kill pedophiles.
In sync, yeah. Just shout out massively to all of that. Massive shout out to the actor who plays Russell. I saw the film that he got him this role. It's the film that he did before this.
For the Wilder People.
Yeah. It is a brilliant film. Very much in similar vein of like young kid, older person, but in the case of that movie, it's an old man.
Mm-hmm. It's a Taika Waititi film, too.
Yes, it is.
It's a pre-Thor Ragnarok Taika Waititi.
Yep. It is just a really good film. I actually watched it because he did Thor Ragnarok, and I went back and watched his catalog. Mm-hmm. Brilliant film. Loved it. This kid is awesome. I love this kid. Shout out to him, be like, when was the last time you saw a plus-size superhero? Like, they're, the industry's against us. Like, he's like a 14-year-old kid, and it's... Oh, it's okay. I'm gonna make a shank. I got a pen I smuggled in here in my prison pocket. Oh, please don't tell me that's what I think it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I hear you
rummaging. I can hear you rummaging around. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome stuff. Just earnestly being like, this guy, he's like, he had my back at the school. He's gonna have my back here, and just the utter disappointment as he gets his ass handed to him. Also, the only teenager in a prison full of like adult men, like there's no child section of this place. He's just like, no.
It's the Icebox.
It's the Icebox.
They're mutants.
Yep. He's a mutant. He doesn't have rights. Very much get that feeling from it of like everybody also hates mutants. It's like, okay, you're picking up on it. Like definitely in the vibe of like this is in the X-Men universe for sure. Overall, really, really cool stuff with Russell just being like, I love that it's like, oh, what happens to him? It's like, oh, he was tortured by a religious nut job. And now he says, blessed are the wicked, that they shall be cleansed by my hand. Like turning that trauma and that abuse into his like psychopathic message that he then like gets into a tussle with Cable in the future and goes and murders Cable's family.
Yeah, the back when I was doing the kill count, like the next name on the list was Russell, and I was like, the whole movie is about him not killing people. What are you talking about? And because they're counting like the timeline stuff, they were like, yeah, he kills 5 people in the alternate Cable timeline of things. So that was, he was like the next on the list in terms of murders.
I also love it that it's in a film that is so egregiously violent. The point of it is like we're trying to stop somebody from killing someone, and it really is about like keeping a kid from going down the wrong path, like with violence.
Trying to stop someone from killing someone after Deadpool like immediately killed one of his other abusers at the beginning of the movie, suggesting, "Hey, no, it is right to kill these people." It is an interesting little paradox that they kind of create for themselves.
Well, one of the things I found about it, it's like, okay, well, Deadpool's already killed a bunch of people. But he's now realizing, like, hey, if I can stop a kid from being like, and it goes back to Vanessa's message to him at the beginning of the movie, and kind of the message of this film is that it doesn't matter how fucked up you've been treated. It doesn't matter how fucked up like you are. If you can help someone, the next generation, be better, then you do it. Like, if you've been a bloody murderer and murdered a bunch of people, and then but then you stop this kid from becoming that murderer, it doesn't necessarily, like, quote unquote, redeem you, but it does mean, like, you did stop somebody from getting on the wrong path.
Yeah, you're fine. You can stay firmly in anti-hero territory there, Wade. You don't need to become full villain.
Pretty much, that's kind of how it goes in this.
Yeah. One of the things I really enjoyed kind of rewatching this was all of the back and forth banter about how luck's not a superpower. Yes, it is. I'm and then we get to see like very creative ways where that plays out.
Yes,
both obviously in the the convoy sequence of her kind of coming down and taking over the convoy with everything, and like all the way through the end of the convoy of like she goes flying into that big inflatable panda and she's okay and safe, and then we also get, of course, the kismet of, oh, I realize now why I'm here. I grew up in this place. No, I was tortured in this place. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And so she gets like her revenge through her little luck stuff. And again, going back to it's a kind of a marrying of like this fun luck choreography mixed with fun creative violence choreography.
Yep.
Like all of the orderlies and stuff that are fighting her in that little hospital room sequence dying of like their own accord kind of stuff through her luck ability. And then like that one, I was looking and I'm like, wait, that last guy didn't die. He just kind of had like a whole bunch of stuff fall on him and he's like pinned down. And because I had forgotten the bookshelf coming in and just crushing his head and decapitating him. I was like, oh, right, there we go. Yeah. So like all of that stuff is just it is a fun mix of, oh, I want to look away, but also it's cartoony enough that I'm okay with it. And it's not like blood splatter in my face, like, oh, this is queasy kind of gore and violence that usually gets me.
It's not James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's like for me, that has always been like the barometer of like, that was too much for you, but anything like a little bit less is pretty much okay. And I felt like that was the case here with Deadpool 2. Like, it's just a little bit less visceral than James Gunn's Suicide Squad. So
yeah, it's still it's one of those things. Like I'm not doing it, but I like part of me is tempted to spoil Deadpool and Wolverine for myself just so I can know like what to expect from the violence and stuff, especially when you have Deadpool and Wolverine in an R-rated unhinged movie. It's going to be like, obviously we talked, a couple weeks ago, like Logan unhinged violence that he got to play around with. This, they're going to, I imagine, just keep that ramped up super high and have him and Deadpool just slicing people from limb from limb. Going back to the Dolly Parton 9 to 5 sequence, like that's another one, like the violence is happening so quick and it's all happening like in the framework of a joke, and like just the absolute unhinged nature of desensitized violence, that and again, like even the sequence after where like the guy that he's chasing after is running in slow-mo and we see all the chaos and bedlam happening behind him. Like so much violence happens in this movie, but it's all happening like with the Deadpool snark and like tongue-in-cheek wink at the audience, that it makes it like, okay, yeah, if there were more blood like spraying off of the hands that he's chopping off limb from limb and stuff, probably wouldn't be fun. If we lingered on any of those bits or anything like that, wouldn't be fun. But the fact that it's all like chop, edit, and we move on.
I think that's kind of the saving grace of the violence in this film, is that it is very, it says something about the kind of film that it is that violence is very secondary to the focus of it, where the focus of it is actually the action. It's the action sequences themselves that are the focus.
Yeah.
Those just happen to be very violent sequences. But unlike James Gunn's Suicide Squad, it never lingers on those things. They're in the background, they're happening, and you see them. But like one of the things I noticed this time is like there's a dude who's like lying on the ground already dead, but he has a sword stuck into his arm, and it's like I'm like I never noticed that before.
Yeah, even the like violently like bent like back snapped the wrong way kind of stuff is like on screen long enough for you to look at it, register it, and be like, oh my god, that's gross, and then we're cut away.
Yeah,
like it doesn't just sit up, like it's there long enough for you to see it and clock it, but it doesn't stay past that point. So I think that's what helps is like it immediately cuts away to something else absurd and crazy.
Yeah, the gore never outstays its welcome.
Yeah. Any other bits that you want to shout out or anything?
I mean, honestly, I love this entire film. If anybody asked me like, hey, did you think that the two of the best films that came out of Fox's like X-Men franchise would be Deadpool 1 and 2, I would have told you I'm surprised by that, but I believe it. It's a like I mentioned at the top, like these people get it. They get what a Deadpool movie needs to be. They understand it, like what it is at its core, and they deliver on it and execute on it. So yeah, I named this entire movie something that is like my favorite scene.
Sure.
It's literally full of my favorite scenes because it's just in sequence in order, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, lots of fun here throughout. Shout out to this being one of the first movies that came out post Stan Lee's passing, so we get the nice, beautiful mural of him on the wall when Domino's, parachuting down to the convoy. It was Into the Spider-Verse, and then this, I think, were the first two like that we got after his passing, and of course, the Into the Spider-Verse one will break you,
Yep.
like knowing that extra context. But this is effectively the first one that he just doesn't show up in and just isn't around for, apart from Logan, which he was still alive for at the time. So yes, sad times there. Rest in peace, Stan Lee. But a ton of fun throughout. All right, let's dive into the report card. We grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give Deadpool 2?
It's an A+ for me. Deadpool 1 and 2 both are A+s for me. So
yeah, I think I agree with that. It's one that like I think Deadpool 1 probably just more iconic in terms of like it came out and like it was wow, they really did the damn thing. Especially after such a long lingering, like the leak that had come out years ago, the teases from way back in X-Men Wolverine Origins, and like the like completely dropping of the ball there, which again also gets shout out to like all of the alternate the shout out to Wade getting the time machine up and running and going back and killing X-Men Wolverine Origins Deadpool, killing Green Lantern Ryan Reynolds, and shout out to him, killing sharpening the cream cheese spreader so he gets the guy, saves Vanessa's life, and also shout out to the Bond sequence,
it's
the opening
brilliant.
credits, the Celine Dion Bond-esque sequence, where Deadpool is both the Bond and the Bond girl
Yes.
characters in that little bit.
Massive shout out to that entire sequence just being, if you pay attention to any of like the names on it that it's coming up with, it's just, it's hilarious.
I mean, the first half the names, I forgot this joke kind of ran on as long as it did, but the first half the names are just like, wait, really? Did they just do that? Did they really kill her kind of thing? Like, it's like 4 or 5 cards that are just like referring to killing off Vanessa pre-credits sequence kind of thing. But then, we get much like with the first one, we get kind of the honest trailers-esque credits of like the guy, starring a guy who clearly doesn't want to share the screen, share the spotlight, and all that stuff. Written by the real villains. Yes. Shout out to Deadpool 2, A+ for me as well, indeed. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. You have Deadpool, you have Free Guy, you have X-Men Dark Phoenix, whoa. You have Logan, you have Thor Ragnarok, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Endgame, and Black Panther. Extracurriculars, anything else on Disney Plus these days? Or no, I think we're both just kind of like going through the motions of let's watch whatever we need to watch for this and
Yeah.
like there are plenty of other things we're watching. They're just not on Disney Plus. There aren't any.
That's kind of where we're at
series at the moment.
right now. Acolyte wrapped up, which was
Yeah.
the big one that we were watching on Disney Plus.
Acolyte, Doctor Who, yeah, both those
yeah.
are done.
So we're just waiting. We're just waiting on the next big drop from Disney Plus. Then.
Yeah, and that's and we are kind of in this like in this run now where hey, yeah, that like Star Wars doesn't really have like Skeleton Crew's like the next series on the horizon whenever that's going to actually drop. And I think what Agatha all along is going to be the next MCU show. So I think we've got like one more of each this year, maybe. But yeah. But speaking of kind of the upcoming slate of things, for the month of August here, we are going to kind of do a little time capsule, go back to some live action stuff from the 90s that are on Disney Plus that we like, including stuff like Heavyweights and Camp Nowhere, movies like that. So stay tuned. Rookie of the Year, I think, is one that I've put on the slate after we did Sandlot earlier this year. So yeah, movies that are like pinnacle, like quintessential summer, repeated VHS replays in my house. And I believe Cam probably will have checked out a number of them as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so stay tuned for that. I don't know what we're going to start off with next week. Maybe Camp Nowhere, because that's just like, that's the quintessential one that kind of inspired this whole thing. When I realized Camp Nowhere was on Disney Plus, I was like, I need to go back and watch Camp Nowhere and see how that holds up, because I watched that a ton as a kid.
Same. So yeah.
So stay tuned for that in the coming weeks. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I'm streaming. I'm streaming every day for the most part. We'll see how long that goes every day. But so far it's been every day. Usually start around 2:30 to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, going till about 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So a couple hours of streaming. Right now I've been playing Zenless Zone Zero. Get to a point today where maybe we'll take a break from that. We'll try other things. But for the most part, just been enjoying that and having a good time streaming. So check that out.
Cool. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. We didn't have a That Nerdy Site show this week because Cameron was under the weather over the weekend. But I've been playing a lot of Metal Gear Solid 5, as well as the very first Metal Gear for the first time. So if we get together for a That Nerdy Site show this week, I'm sure we will talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as maybe some Metal Gear thoughts. But I imagine the main focus is probably going to be our Deadpool and Wolverine spoiler cast. So stay tuned for that in the days ahead. And if you're going to see Deadpool and Wolverine this weekend, enjoy. Or if you already saw it, enjoy. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard, you can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for the latest. If you like what you heard, once again, please remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other. Class dismissed. And let's go get the chimichangas. I don't know. I thought about being like maximum effort, and then I was like, maximum effort isn't a great sign off, so chimichangas. Whatever. Go fuck yourself, Cam.